Hello everybody and welcome! My name is Ryan and this is Civilization 7, which is a game that has had a huge amount of change in the almost year that it's been live. Updates have come thick and fast, particularly towards the end of 2025. We're now currently at the time of filming on update 1.3.1, and again at the time of filming, Firaxis is about to embark on its first public, secret public, let's show people some updates and see what they think. So the signs are good in terms of the game pushing through, but I thought it would be a good time, after roughly a year of the game being out and at the beginning of 2026, to give my personal opinions of the 7 things that are the most important to me that I want to see Civ 7 change or update or bring to the table in 2026. As a reminder, these are my personal opinions, and I am a totally biased entity. I have taken paid work from Firaxis, I have a mortgage to pay, and I would sell out every single one of you if it meant making money. The point is, I'm not a trained journalist or reviewer. I don't have any sort of training behind me. Take what I say with a huge pinch of salt, maybe an entire luxury resource worth of salt, okay? You've been warned. 7 things that I would like to see Civilization 7 change. Point number 1 is all about an increase in the amount of diverse abilities in leaders and civilizations, and an increase in asymmetry, which is something that I have talked about on this channel before. Asymmetry. What do I mean by asymmetry? For me, asymmetry can be best explained by the difference between single player games and multiplayer games. Take multiplayer, or at least competitive multiplayer. In Civilization 6, we saw the rise of the better balanced game, better balanced map, all of these sort of mods which take the game and smooth it over, so that no matter who you play, everybody has an equal-ish chance of winning the game. It's all about skill, not about who you're playing. That is broadly described as a symmetrical experience. It doesn't matter what you do, everything is on the table to you. With single player, it's a little bit different. In single player, it's you versus the AI, which means you can do ridiculous things. You don't need to play fair because there's nobody else on the other side getting angry or sad at the fact that you are playing a leader with wildly different abilities. Specifically, asymmetry is the idea that not every game is the same. Depending on who you pick, you might find, like for instance, a Charlemagne game is entirely different to an Isabella game. I am a huge fan of asymmetry because I believe fundamentally, and this could be wrong in terms of what you believe, I believe Civilization 7 is a single player game primarily, and I think the design of the game should focus on single player. And because of that, I want to see more asymmetry and more powerful leaders and civilizations. And for me, there's kind of 2 ways to think about this. Firstly, it's a point of replayability. If we have a look at some of the early leaders, you'll see what I mean. Rizal, small bonuses here and there, but generally speaking, you just have flat multipliers on certain yields. You could compare him to, say, Himiko, Catherine, Benjamin Franklin, Ada Lovelace. Sure, each of them have abilities that give you yields that are more or less powerful, but broadly speaking, one game with one of these leaders is 99% similar to a game with another one of the leaders. With Catherine, you're going to want to stock up on great works and builders and wonders that have great works, but you need to do that anyway to win. So how is an Ada game going to look any different? You're still going to have those great works. Sure, their numbers might be a little bit different, but you play just about the same. And that isn't asymmetrical. That is a symmetrical game with multiple leaders playing broadly the same game of Civ. For me, that is not entirely replayable. I prefer leaders that make you pick the game a little differently. Let's cast our mind to Civilization 5, where we had civs like Venice, the one city civilization, or Austria, who was able to take city-states and just incorporate them unlike anybody else. Or Civilization 6, where you had civs like Maori, Mali, Congo, Babylon, who fundamentally changed how the game was played with mechanics that were totally different to others. Now, I will say that some of the more recent leaders, and a couple of the old ones, are very, very different. Isabella, for instance, and the ability to get insane yields from natural wonders means that she plays a game entirely differently to a lot of others. Himiko, really, really cool mechanics with alliances, and then the DLC leaders that were released afterwards. Saida is extremely exceptionally wild and different. Like Shumabai was entirely different in terms of the way you play the game with city-states. Even Genghis had different and new mechanics. Edward Teach has an entirely separate pirate minigame that no one else gets to enjoy for most of the game. These leaders are what I would call asymmetrical, and I think they are really enjoyable because of it. If you play an Edward Teach game, it will look nothing, absolutely nothing like a Himiko Queen of War game, because one is all about plunder and constant shadow warfare. The other is about making sure that you're friends with everybody. This is really, really, really cool. Whereas Hatshepsut, yeah, you get like small bonuses, but it's pretty much exactly the same. And it kind of links in with my second point. I think one of the major problems with Civilization 7 thus far has been the scale of abilities with leaders and civs. So many abilities in this game are underpowered to the point of obsolescence. Hatshepsut is a very, very good example, as are Rizal, Bolivar, Ada. I mean, the list could go on. Confucius, their abilities look good on paper, but when you actually get into the game, the power that the game offers you is far greater than the power that the leader brings. Let me show you. This was a game that I was playing on the channel a little while ago with Lafayette, who is a classic example of a leader who does both the good and the bad simultaneously. Lafayette is one of the leaders that has a classic flat bonus. In this case, we're playing the modern age, 3 culture and happiness per age in settlements, doubled in distant lands. Now let's just take this and assume that it's all being doubled. It's not, but it just is easier for the maths. We currently have 39 settlements, which means we're getting just over 200 culture if this was all distant lands. This game was not a culture build, but I'm currently sat on 1,800, which means Lafayette's ability is only bringing maybe 12-13% of my overall yield into the game. The happiness is about the same. And I know I'm being quite dismissive and I'm sort of glossing over a lot here, but a lot of the game feels like this. A lot of the abilities are tiny, absolutely tiny. We're looking at traditions that I'm taking through, and half of them I don't bother to use because 1 culture on diplomacy military buildings, doubled if a building is both. This means nothing by the time we get to the modern age. 10% production in all cities whilst at war. This is supposed to be the big Giga Prussian ability. It barely does anything. 10% culture in cities not founded by me. I think for me personally, the game is riddled with decisions like this, where the abilities of civs just don't do anything. I'm going to call the base game the flat line yield. Like, let's imagine, for instance, I was playing a game and I didn't have any of the Prussia abilities, any of the previous civ abilities that I've taken in traditions. I think this game was Rome and Bulgaria. Yep, so it was. And I didn't have any of Lafayette's abilities. We were playing a totally blank game with no abilities. I can guarantee you 90%, 95% of my power would still be in the game, because the game gives more abilities through things like buildings, things on the regular tech tree, things on the regular civic tree, things that anybody can take. These mean more than the stuff that is unique. Now, if you're looking for a symmetrical game where all leaders are kind of roughly equal and anybody can always win, I totally get that design-wise that's a really good idea. But for me, I would love the game more if, for instance, Lafayette was so wildly different to all of the other civs and leaders that you went, wow, this is really cool. This is a Lafayette game. Like, let's imagine if this was 10 culture and 10 happiness per age in settlements. You'd look at these numbers and you'd go, hey, that's like 700-800 extra culture. That's insane. Yes, please. This game feels and smells different, and I'd come into this and I would play the game wildly differently than if I was playing any other leader. It's all about replayability. Imagine if when you looked at the civ abilities, you were like, whoa, that's a massive ability that nobody else has got, and this one like doubles my culture, and this one doubles my strength. I understand there is an element of power creep you need to kind of be aware of on this, and power creep is the general idea that the more you bring into the game, it gets more and more and more powerful in order for it to make an impact, so that the original stuff is really weak. I totally understand that is a problem. I don't want to take away from that at all. I'm talking more about where the balance of power is. At the moment, I would say 90% of the power is on the civic and tech trees, and, well, we didn't even need to talk about city-states, but city-states are a classic example. City-state abilities, in some cases, are wildly more strong than leader and civ abilities. Like, right now, this city-state is giving me gold for every warehouse building, and I can guarantee that's giving me more gold than any leader would do. Yeah, the more I think about it, city-states are a classic example. You go for these because they are so powerful compared to all other abilities that it makes sense to have as many as you can. I would prefer to see a much bigger balance of power shift towards the stuff that you've picked. I want Prussia and I want Lafayette to be giving me tons more power compared to the stuff that I would get playing any other game, because for me, Civ 7 is a single player game and I want to see replayability. Again, I would like to point out that some of the more recent leaders, the mechanics, I think Teach stands out as a classic example. Saida, Lakshmabai, a lot of these new leaders are fantastic because they do actually have mechanics that make games feel unique, but so many civs are just buried under small percentages that kind of tweak around the edges of stuff, and you kind of go like, if I've just played a game with Confucius, do I really want to play a game with Ada? I mean, yeah, sure, that one gets science per age on cities and one gets science from specialists, but again, classic example, 2 science on specialists, okay, sounds really good. In the modern age, you can easily have like 6 or 7 science on specialists just from any civ. Asymmetry, for me, it is the one thing that makes the game more and more replayable, and I would love to see it more. Point number 2, and we have to talk about religion. Religion is one of the features that has been promised a decent upgrade since the game launched almost a year ago, and it still remains an infuriatingly bare bones system. Now, I would like to point out that there have been small updates to religion since the game launched. There are a couple more beliefs, a few couple tweaks here and there, but fundamentally it's the same minigame it always has been. Missionaries are one of the few ways to spread your religion. You build them in cities, they have no increasing price cost, they always have the same production and gold value, and you move them around, converting urban and rural population until something follows your religion. If you do the reliquary belief, you gain relics. If you do the founder belief, you get some yields, and you can enhance your religion if you get the tech or the civic in the theology tree under Reformation. Nope, theology. Here it is. But that's it. Here are the problems with religion. Number 1, it's still incomplete. The game has had open slots in it, unlock more founder beliefs through gameplay, but this doesn't exist. Okay, one of them does exist. If you convert, I think it's a high percentage, 75, 80%, nobody's really ever really figured it out, of the distant lands to your religion, you will unlock another founder belief. And in theory, people have rumored the other one can be unlocked through some mysterious mechanism. Maybe it's 100% conversion, maybe it's something else, but fundamentally, this is not in the game yet. Missionaries can't be killed, they can't be stopped. Right now, you can see Edward Teach has a missionary, so we are just changing the city back and forth, using charges. Actually, look, here's Harriet here. Tubman's got a missionary as well. I can't attack them, I can't kill them, I can't defeat them in combat, not even Civ 6 methods of being able to use, say, apostles to have some combat with them, or Civ 5 where you can actually attack them as units. They are unstoppable. It doesn't matter how much of the world you can convert. The AI can always make missionaries, even from dead religions. It is a fundamentally, frustratingly bare bones system. And I think the real issue for me is it's the only way, really, that you can do the culture legacy paths. You have to engage with it every single game. There's no choice. Everyone gets a religion, and it's the only real way to get relics. Okay, there's a couple of wonders and abilities here and there, but if you don't engage in religion, you ain't completing these 12 trees, these 12 relics to complete the tree. You know what I mean? This is what I would like to see from religion. Firstly, this needs to be overhauled and finished so that we can unlock everything in the game. If this doesn't exist, just take it away as an option. The fact that it's here makes it even worse because I see it every game and I'm like, I can't unlock it. We need more choices. We need religion to be more impactful. I would like to see it as optional, so you can either engage with it or you don't have to. There needs to be a way of stopping missionaries, religious combat. It needs to be made more complex. Religion needs a huge overhaul. Now, we have been promised a religion overhaul since the beginning of the game. For whatever reason, this is a update that's taking a long time. I really am looking forward to it being fleshed out, but this is high up my list. Please give us something more complicated, something more exciting that we can get our teeth into. Let's have a look at point 3, stats and information. Stats and information. This is something that I think think pops up in Civ 7 quite a bit. And I go back to one of the fundamental ideas that I think the developers had when they made this game. Depth, but not complexity. The idea that somebody could pick this game up really, really quickly. It wasn't daunting, it was easy to learn, but it was cunningly difficult to master. Keep that in mind. Personally, I think there is a fundamental difference between overloading somebody with information, so the idea that you don't want too much information available at any one point because it becomes overwhelming, versus the information not being there in the first place. Let's have a look, for instance, at the capital in this game. These are the yields the city is making. Let's have a look and try and dive into them. 700 food, okay. It's because it's 725 minus 25. What are these deductions? We don't know. This could be literally anything. I assume this is the food that's being consumed by population, but there's literally nothing to tell us that. We can dive into the income and it does give us some more stuff. Yields from a connected town. Which town? Resources and supply, plus 13. Silver, when you dive into it, plus 85. So the numbers don't add up. Yield from surplus happiness, 10.4. But then, no, it's actually 52 when you go through it. None of the numbers ever make sense, and none of them actually are ever explained. Minus deductions, 16. Minus deductions, 80. Let's have a look at the yields on the global level. We scroll down to the bottom. Other yield income, 1,700 science. That is a third of my science, and I can't go in and work out what's causing it. Where are these numbers coming from? All right, let's have a look at the policies. Okay, great. 4 food on culture buildings. How much food does that give me? I don't know. Culture on towns for every tradition slotted into the government. How much does this give me? You don't know. Now, it should be worth pointing out that a lot of this information is solved by using third-party mods via the Steam Workshop or Civ Online. Oh, I can never remember the name of the website. So you do have ways of finding this information out, but this isn't in the base game, and this should be in the base game. There should be way more information available. And again, I get the fact you don't want to be overloaded, but it should be here. Nested tooltips are one way of doing it, or actually expanding out and making sure that the yield numbers actually make sense. That would help as well. Like, this information's in the game. Display it properly. And of course, whenever we talk about information, we do have to mention Civipedia and the ability to actually look anything up. Let's just say, okay, right, the laboratory, I want to be able to click into Civipedia. Left click doesn't do anything. Let's do right click and nope, doesn't go through. So you can't access Civipedia through any of the screens. So that interaction just isn't there. So you have to go manually in, search for something. Let's have a look at the museum. Okay, so the information is in here. Gives us the yields, gives us the cost, gives us the requirements for natural history. This is the civic. Can I click on the civic? Nope, doesn't take me through. So we have to search for natural history. And now that I'm in here, does it mention the fact that it unlocks museums? Nope, that information isn't in the Civipedia. I'm just coming up with some stuff on the top of my head that always makes me laugh. Let's have a look at Tundra. What yields does Tundra have on the map if I ever wanted to understand it? Nope, not written here. I mean, you can go through the text. Military science, what does it do? Nothing. Nuclear fission, who knows? Let's have a look at the battleship and you can see, here we go, it's got 60 strength, upgrades from Dreadnought, but you can't click through to the Dreadnought. I click on the Dreadnought, yep. I mean, now I can see it, but it's all so clunky. And another pet enjoyment of mine, the memento menu. Let's say I want to search for something that gives me culture. I just have to assume they're the purple ones and go through them manually. Can I sort them? No. Can I search them? No. Can I have a look and see which leaders are connected to them? No. Civ 7 fundamentally has had a user interface problem since the game was launched. And I think this is one of the things that is stopping people from really becoming invested in the game for large periods of time. All the information needs to be available to be seen in the game somewhere, and it needs to be sortable, it needs to be hideable, it needs to be accessed. And again, I get not having information overload. I totally understand that as a design choice, but there's a difference between hiding information and it just not being there. And I fear we have too much of the latter. Point number 4, and I think this actually drifts onto a point I might make a whole other video on, because I think this is fundamentally one of the problems with the game at the moment. Let's talk about map diversification. Now, when the game launched, there were very, very few maps on it. Pangea Plus, Terra Incognita, Shuffle, Fractal, Archipelago, Continents, and Continents Plus. I think those were the ones, right? Maybe I've added in another one. Whichever way you look at it, they were a very few amounts of maps. But okay, maybe you like a particular map. Maybe we're going to play on an Archipelago map. I kind of like the script. I like the gameplay. Let's go into the advanced options. Let's have a look at the map settings. Okay, Okay, I can change the start position, I can change the size of the map, and I can even look at seeds. Can I change the water level so that I can make it more islands, less islands, smaller islands, bigger islands? No. Can I change the weather so that the map is hotter, more desert, or colder? If I, for instance, wanted an Amina game or a Catherine game? Nope, can't change those. Can I up the number of resources to make exploration easier? Nope, can't change that. Can I change the number of city-states or independent powers that spawn? I mean, I know I can obviously turn them so that they're not hostile. Nope, can't change that. This is something I find it so weird. The developers have got themselves in such a logical hole where they are so worried about the game playing well that they decide, right, this is the set way X or Y has to be done in order for the game to work as intended. So we will give you a setting that is preloaded and can't be changed. And this is throughout the game. I'm using maps as a classic example of this, but you can't then go in and change it. And I think this, again, is a replayability thing. Sometimes you want to play a game, I don't know, with Pachacuti, where the number of mountains are insane, or maybe even there are no mountains to give him a bit of challenge. Maybe I want to play Teach, but have it so that the world is totally made of water, so that the pirates are super cool. Or maybe I want to play someone like Hatshepsut or Amina and up the number of resources to absolutely silly levels. You can't tweak any of these settings. We need more options because, you know, they can be done. The difficulty settings were fantastically split out. I can now change all of the independent factors of difficulty with the AI. This is fantastic. This lets me really change the difficulty level on so many things separately. Why can't we do it with maps? It is rather frustrating. Let's go into point 5 whilst we're here. Legacy paths, crisis, and victory conditions. And again, I want to put a big caveat out here because this is currently something that Firaxis are looking at hugely. They are looking at legacy paths. They are looking at being able to play civs all the way through. They're looking at putting a lot of new content in on this. So perhaps these words are going to be a little bit obsolete within a few weeks. Who knows? I am after replayability. I want the games to feel so different that I want to come back again and again and again because there's something new and interesting for me to play. At the moment, there is only one legacy path per age for each factor. I always have to do Wonders of the Ancient World every game if I'm playing culture, or Toshakana if I'm going for religion, or Geographic Society if I want to win the game with culture. It's the same every time. Sure, it looks like there are 12 paths, but there aren't because they're the same every game. I would love it if we had options. What if Wonders weren't the only way that we could hit a culture legacy path in Antiquity? Maybe it was the number of cultural buildings we make, or the overall culture value. What if there are other mechanics and sometimes a game could have 2 or 3 of these, or sometimes it could randomly change between them? I don't know. Replayability. And something else that I would like to point out as well, why can't we, and again this is a slider point, change how difficult these legacy paths are? I mean, 7 World Wonders, what if I want that to be 6 or 5 because this is a really big map, or 12 because there's only 2 players? You can't change them. I can't change the number of resources or how many towns you need to have or codices you need to display. I can't change the Railroad Tycoon points to factor in for a smaller or larger game. I can't change the production value of space race projects. None of this is tweakable, and it's really weird because if I was able to come in and change how many treasure fleet points that I needed to get the distant land treasures, and also I'd change the number of resources on the map or the amount of treasure on the map, I could up the replayability by changing the game that I'm playing. To me, it just seems like an easy win. Crisis, again, is something that I want to bring up in this. There's a few crises, we need more of them. But rather than just being able to turn them on and off, why can't we change how brutal they are? We already have a slider for disaster frequency. Why can't we say, actually, I want there to be a super plague, or like a little tiny bit of plague, or I really want the crisis to be an absolute bloodbath, or turn it off completely. There's no middle option. It's either on or off. Give us choice. Give us the ability to change things. Let's have a look now at point 6 and interacting with the game. Now, I'm going to be talking about my experience here as a PC player. If you're playing on console, I apologize. Some of these points may not apply to you, or maybe they do. But the way that I interact with the game is really buggy sometimes. Now, I don't know why, but this game has always felt like my clicks just sometimes don't work. The clicks are just so sluggish. Now, they're currently working as it goes, but I've just noticed compared to Civ 6 or Civ 5, sometimes the clicks just don't work. I think there's a really funny interaction with like moving the mouse and clicking. Sometimes it can be quite easy to just not have your clicks register. I still don't know why you can't just click off something into neutral territory to unclick or right click. Oh no, it moves the unit. So you forever like accidentally moving things. You have to re-click on the unit rather than being able to click into the map. Hotkeys, some things you can change. Okay, there's a lot of different screens that you can open and close, and you can change the hotkeys for this. But let's say I want to open up the settler lands or the continent lands or the trade lands. Are there hotkeys for this? Nope, can't assign those to a hotkey. Can I put down map tags so that I can see where things are? Nope, map tags don't exist. Can I search on the map? Nope, can't search. Interacting with the game is so frustrating, especially late game when it's modern and there are loads of units. The lag is incredible. I don't know what can be done about this, but surely something. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the one that's finding this more difficult than it needs to, but there are so many mods out there that fix things like this, like the clicking thing, that make me think maybe this is a problem. Now moving on, point number 7, achievements and awards. And this is something that's probably really petty, but look, I'm level 50. Currently, this is the max level. I cannot get any higher than this, which is really annoying because there are still tons and tons of achievements that I haven't got. My leaders are nowhere near maxed out. Yeah, I'm capped at level 50. Please, can we increase the level cap? As DLC gets released, I want to see more achievements put into the game. We've already had leaders put in where they just weren't added to the challenges for quite some time. Some leaders just didn't have the same amount of challenges as other. I think they've all been caught up now, but I'd like more information on it. Admiral of the Blue, as Edward teacher modern, complete a quest to impose the law of the sea. What does this even mean? Give us information. Okay, fair enough. That maybe is like a little bit of a go and find it quest, but it's so bare bones. And this is Steam. Not everybody plays through Steam. There's people that play on console, people that play via Epic. But look, there are only 37 challenges and achievements. Why are none of the DLC leaders here? Why are there no challenges here? Look up Civ 6. I've only got 68% of them, and I've got almost 10,000 hours in this game because there's 320 and they're so wildly difficult. I'd love to see more variation in the challenges. Again, it's replayability. Make me play a game in an incredibly goofy way. 3 aerodromes, 2 tiles away from an active volcano. This is the sort of random stuff that you could put in so easily. It just seems very bare bones. Maybe it's because they wanted people to interact with the in-game system more. I kind of understand that, but we need our achievements. Like even these are just so simple compared to previous games. Max out logistics tree of the commander. Okay, where's my put 3 airports in range of a volcano? It doesn't exist. And I was going to end the video here, but as I was talking to my wonderful channel supporters and trying to scope out what I needed to put in this video, they very, very accurately reminded me of the few things that need to be shouted out as like minor things that didn't make the top 7, but are still quite important. Multiplayer. It's still incredibly unstable. It's better than Civ 6, but it is still unstable. But we still can't change mementos between ages. If I have a turn timer on, I can't change the turn timer during the game. Once I pick a time, that's it for the rest of the game. Dynamic has no way of being able to adapt it, and there's no pause button. You can't pause the game. There are so many quality of life multiplayer changes that need to be put in. And also, thank you Potato McWhiskey for reminding me of this point, because this is a really good one. Why can we still not swap tiles between cities? Let's say, for instance, this tile, which is in one of the cities, it actually doesn't tell me which tile it's in. Which city is this tile in? That information doesn't exist. Am I just missing it? No, it just doesn't exist. Why can't I move it between my cities? Yeah, look, it's in my capital. I want it in this city. It's right there. Can I steal it? No. Can I transfer it? No. Give me the ability to move tiles. Like, I get it. Okay, it's more complicated now. Tiles equal population. It must be weird transferring population between cities, but still, it would be awesome if we could do something like that. And why do some things just still not fit on the screen? What is with this growth number just underneath the bar? Why is the happiness figure just underneath the bar? These are minor things. And as we draw this video to a close, I do want to remind people, I have almost 1,000 hours in this game. I really like it. I have made a ton of content, and I will continue to make a ton of content for Civilization 7. And I do think the game has come a huge way since launch, especially in the last 3 to 4 months. Some of the most recent build patches, I'm thinking from like 1.2.1 onwards have been absolute fire. This comes from a place of passion, excitement, joy over what the game could become. So if it feels a little ranty at times, perhaps it's a little bit overdone. But still, that is my opinion of the 7 things that I would change with Civilization 7 in 2026. Let me know in the comments. What would you change? Do you agree with my points, and have I missed anything? You know, fundamentally, you could have arguments about whether or not Civ switching is for you, whether or not the entire dynamics of the game are for you, and that's sort of neither here nor there. The game is built and it is blueprinted to be like that. What I'm talking about more is what could we do to improve the game as it is? An interesting little thought experiment. Anyway, go about your day and be merry. I'm Ryan, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye. And finally, a very special shout out goes to Glorious Petra, Clibben Thurdas, Poppy Dude, The Nickerman, Mushkin Mandeltort, Matthew Wilkinson, Paul Coffey, Toon General, The Uncivil Engineer, Radiatore, Debo91, Dan Jamo, Slither Alley, Scott Stratton, Skeptical Bear, Cinnamon Beard, Private Selection, Genoa Salami, Callum Billy, Garrett Gowan, El Truant, Creston, RB Hedge, Burial, I'm Daft, Gooberman, Dr. Bobby, Mixomatosis, Indigenous 68, Teddy Zursa, Barnaby Rex, Charlie Bears, Nate the Great, Alex Frost, Mean Penguin, Interplanet Janet, Frankincense Battlezord, Geography Teacher, Juvara, Morax, Sinikush, Echo Bear, Legally Trash, Shadow of Gaia, Bob Tway, Abstract Fun, JP Genius, Arctic Fox. Thank you everyone for your support. Goodbye.